Still Poddable, still Poddable. The Boston Celtics still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh yeah! Still Poddable, still Poddable. The Boston Celtics still Poddable, still Poddable. And a 19.
Beat Rob, Jim, Packard, J. King.
Still Poddable, still Poddable.
The Caesar on the court to get another ring.
Still Poddable, still Poddable.
Everybody in the chat now sing.
Still Poddable, still Poddable. Still Poddable, still Poddable. The Boston Celtics still Poddable, still Poddable. Oh yeah! Shut your ass up,
You guys always have been here.
Welcome to Still Poddable, the best Celtics podcast here on Al Gore's internet. I am Sam J.M. Packard, joined by Brian B. Robb of MassLive.com. We are a Monday through Friday Boston Celtics podcast, bringing you content every single day of the week on patreon.com/stillpoddable. But today is the free episode, and that means we are on the CLNS YouTube page and also brought to you by Prize Picks. And B-Rob, what a week in Boston Celtics basketball. You have a 40-40 performance from Derek White and Peyton Pritchard, an absolute beatdown of the Philadelphia 76ers, and then this prime-time marquee matchup, the second-best team in the West, the second-best team in the East, Lakers, Celtics, this historic rivalry where Luka Doncic makes his debut as a member of the Lakers in the TD Garden. First time for Luka back in TD Garden since the NBA Finals, and the Celtics just put a solid beat down on the Lakers, just an absolutely dominant third quarter where it was really the Celtics defense that stepped up. We heard a lot about the Lakers defense since they acquired Luka being the best in the league. They're on this long winning streak, but once again, it was Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown kind of dominating Luka Doncic, and Celtics came away with a very, very solid victory on Saturday night in prime time in the Garden.
Yeah, that was we've had a lot of games over the years, Packard, and regular season buzz, and they usually fall short of expectations. This was one, particularly in that first quarter. The level of play on both ends was fantastic. And you could tell from the get-go, Tatum and Brown were ready to go. The whole team was ready to go, but those guys like Jaylen, obviously on Luka, Tatum, I felt particularly with his like rebounding and physicality, they wanted this. And Joe Mazzulla was happy to let him do it, letting them go for 45 minutes for Tatum, barely coming out for 2 minutes in that first quarter. But it is now packed with him. I feel like he's been in this stretch now where he's just slowly is he turning into a triple-double guy before our eyes in like the last month? I feel like this is like this stretch here, and he got 40, 12, and 8. He's not getting them, but he is filling the stat sheet more than ever across the board. And I think that kind of speaks to just how good he's been during this stretch, because it's more and more just giving what the Celtics they need on any particular night. And that against the Lakers team like this was just, they didn't have a defense for it.
If not a triple-double guy, he's like a 30-10 guy. And sometimes he'll have the assists and sometimes he won't. And a lot of that depends on whether or not his teammates are making shots. But yeah, I think that we can talk about, the new look Lakers and things like that. But I think the story coming out of that game just has to be how dominant Jayson Tatum was. And it's just, I don't know. I think we have to wait till tomorrow to see like what the national responses be from like national NBA podcasts. But 40, 12, and 8 in this primetime matchup where he is the main reason why the Celtics won that game. And he's had a dominant performance against the Sixers, obviously a lesser opponent on Thursday, but just has been so good ever since, mid-January, where this is entirely consistent. I think the rebounding, as you mentioned, has been huge, and just how much that fuels the offense is like the defensive rebound by Jayson Tatum quickly passes it up the floor, and then they get into the offense. He's reading the defense so well, making the right play. And then the volume three-point shooting. He had 16 attempts from three last night, and it just didn't seem like a bad – those weren't – I don't know if he was the most efficient. What was he, 6 of 16?
Yeah.
But I think anytime you can get over the 5 threes from Jayson Tatum, because he's also going to get you the tough twos. He's also going to get you layups near the basket. He's going to go to the free throw line. He's just playing his best basketball. And I think the thing that's frustrating to me is that I don't know why I care about this so much, but like he should get lit. I just want him on the ballot for MVP. I just want him in playing the best basketball we've ever seen Jayson Tatum play. And I don't think that's like really much up for debate. There was obviously times when he was like a more prolific scorer, when there was a kind of less options on offense. And I get all of the reasons why, the numbers. Jokic just had a 30-20-20 game. Like, I understand it's tough to compete with that, but it feels like because the Celtics are such a well-crafted team on the roster, Tatum doesn't get the credit, but he just continues to hit every single benchmark. And in terms of contributing towards winning, no player has done as much winning as Jayson Tatum since he's been kind of like the leader of this Boston Celtics team.
Yeah, and I think slowly but surely he is. I think it's going to take a year. I think it's going to take another year or two before he just like garners that type of respect. But performances like these on ABC, where the entire world is watching against a Lakers team that had won 8 in a row, that should help in this department. Because while LeBron went like toe to toe with him for a quarter or two, like that was it. He ran out of gas, and Luka was really never in the mix for that. And so, if you want to. A year or two ago, you could throw out the question, like Tatum or Luka, like who would you rather have? Now that like that's obviously no longer even a conversation, but performances like this just like lengthen the gap, I feel like. And for all the buzz that Luka has had in there for, his play in the fourth quarter where he like looked like himself again for a change, like it didn't matter because Tatum was that guy for essentially 48 minutes in this game. And he even came out and, we asked him after the game, were you going to go for 48 minutes? I think it was Gary Ashman who asked him, like, were you going to go for 40 minutes? He's like, I knew I was going to come out at some point, but like, this is going to be it. And it was good. Like, I like the fact that, for all the complaints we have about minutes and stuff like that, I have no problem if they want to circle a game like this on the calendar and be like, all right, this is a checkpoint game for us. We're going to have everyone well rested, ready to go, and we're going to give it our best shot. And that is, they've kind of done that for a lot of the past months now, but this was clearly at a different level last night. And the results, particularly from Tatum's standpoint, were phenomenal and makes you feel very good about him now and very good about him going forward. And Dan Packard, very good about his MVP chances someday, because I do think if he keeps this up, like sometime in the next 5 years, like he is going to actually be legitimately in the mix.
Yeah, at some point you got to get rewarded for all the winning. But I think the minutes played is a huge part of his game that is kind of underrated, because he can he plays in 75 plus games every single season and can go and have these like 45-minute performances in multiple games. And it never seems to take a toll on his performance, or maybe he'll just do a dog shit performance against the Utah Jazz on Monday, and I wouldn't blame him for that. But he consistently shows up and just plays and is available and is can turn it like. At no point during this game is like, oh, you have to get Jayson Tatum a moment of rest. Like, he's always been just to be able to rise to the occasion, and his I've never questioned his endurance or. I guess there is some games where it's, I feel like the Cavs game where he came out and had that dominant first half, and maybe he kind of faded down the stretch just because of fatigue and being so tired. But I feel like that's a rare kind of example. Normally it's just like you have no question about like Joe playing him an entire second half, which he's done for, I feel like, multiple times in this regular season. And so it's just, his body of work, just like he shows up and he's just always there playing high level basketball. And it's a major reason why the Celtics still are the favorites to win the NBA championship. And I think another reason why is another guy, the other Jay, who I just thought had played a great game yesterday, and it feels like the Jays kind of take any sort of matchup against Luka personally, especially Jaylen Brown, just on the defensive end, just like bodying Luka Doncic, picking up full court, creating a bunch of steals. I just thought Jaylen Brown's effort was like super locked in on the defensive end. It feels like something he did last year in the playoffs, which he deserves a lot of credit for. I don't know if that kind of level of defensive focus has been there throughout this season. It felt like it's been there, and certainly in some big games. And tonight or last night was a big game, and Jaylen Brown stepped up and was like, I'm going to make this extremely difficult on Luka Doncic to do anything. And Luka obviously got his points. Luka gets his points, but I just thought Jaylen kind of set the tone. And the Lakers only had 13 points in the third quarter. I think a lot of that just stems from how well the Celtics were defending them and the defensive intensity. And I felt like that was set by Jaylen Brown at the early portion of this game.
Yeah, it's kind of the story of the last couple of years for him. Is like he embraces taking on that toughest assignment. And for as good as Tatum was out of the gate, like Brown was right there. Like those two guys were coming out of the gate offensively and defensively at their best. And with Jaylen, like we talk about underrated parts about Tatum, I think underrated part about Jaylen his entire career is like to the big moments he's spoke of Packard, like in the playoffs, his game pretty much is barring like the Heat game 7 collapse, it always rises to a higher level, or at least maintains. Like a lot of guys, they get to the playoffs and they take a step back because defenses kind of expose what they can do. Jaylen seems to like offensively can score against anyone, no matter the form. And then defensively, like you said, when he is locked in, he can like on ball wise, he's pretty close to as good as the Celtics have to guard a guy like Luka at this point, and takes the burden off of a guy like Tatum off. I think in a game like last night is like, all right, Tatum doesn't have to chase around the toughest guy all night. Like he didn't have to spend a ton of time on LeBron. Obviously didn't have to spend a ton of time on Luka. And even saving a guy like Jrue Holiday, like if you don't have to have Jrue Holiday chase these guys for 30 minutes in a regular season game, like that's going to help keep him good to go for the long term too. So Jaylen embracing that in a game like this. And I don't know, like was Nico Harrison doing like cartwheels for the first half of that game because thinking he could save him? I think it doesn't matter. It still doesn't. Nothing's going to save him from how awful this trade was ever. But it still is funny to think about that, like him being like, oh, yeah, this is why we traded the guy. This is why we gave up on him, even though it still makes no sense.
I was very close to tweeting Nico was right. And maybe that will be borne out. I think so on the broadcast, and obviously you were in the building, but on the broadcast, they just kept on going. I was like, oh, Luka doesn't look right. Luka's like hobbling around up there. Isn't that what Luka always looks like, yes, at least in the playoffs?
Against the Celtics.
Against the Celtics, at least. And I think it goes to show the incredible talent that Luka has, but also like, what if he didn't look like that? What if he was in like good shape and like able to, be some sort of defensive presence out there? Like the Celtics offensive strategy, at least to start the third quarter, it was like the first play, it's like Jayson Tatum ISO on Luka Doncic. The next play, Jaylen Brown ISO on Luka Doncic. And it was successful. They just like kept on scoring points that way. And obviously the Lakers had, some of their huge pieces missing, like Jackson Hayes and Rui Hachimura. But like that, to be such a target, it's just, I don't know what to do with Luka at this point. Like he's obviously a very, very talented offensive player, but it's just a wild. He's just like I'm speechless, B-Rob. I'm speechless. I've lost the ability to have a cogent analysis just because it's like you shouldn't be a star player in the NBA and be this much of a target on your back on the defensive end.
Agreed. And that became clear cut in the NBA Finals last year. And now it's still like, with that said, if LeBron and Luka are healthy, like, would it stun me to see them in the conference finals in the West? No. Would it stun me to see them like upset like the Thunder in a crazy situation? No. Like it's possible because those guys are that good offensively. But I think we see the reminder of like the Celtics, and you would think other contenders can just poke holes in Luka, unlike other teams can in the regular season, because they have the weapons to do it. There's nowhere to hide him. And that just becomes readily apparent in this game on Saturday night. And to his credit, like Joe Mazzulla and everyone on the floor is just absolutely ruthless in terms of, okay, We know who the target is. We're going to keep on going after it. And whether it's in isolation situations, whether it's just off-ball cuts, like that's always there. And Luke, I don't know. He just hasn't – nothing changed on that front last night. And I don't know if he has a couple years to try to change his reputation there, but it's going to take a while because the damage has been done, obviously, from a defensive standpoint.
Yes. All right, I see we have a legend waiting, but before we get to the legend to hear his hot takes about Luka, I got to tell you about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in award winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to everyone. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. It's just a very fun way to pick a couple players. You're about to watch the Celtics. Maybe you like a higher on Jayson Tatum rebounds. Maybe you like a lower on there's no real defensive metrics, but a lower on whatever Luka Doncic is doing out there. Charge is taken. You go on the lower for Luka Doncic. Prize Picks is just an easy and fun way, and they put their members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. And when my picks hit, I can get my money in as quick as 15 minutes. Prize Picks is the best place for this real money sports action. 10 million users. You can sign up today. They also invented Flex Play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup isn't perfect. Say you pick 5 and you only hit 4. You can still get some money, even if one of those picks doesn't hit. So today, download the Prize Picks app and use code CLNS, and you'll get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download Prize Picks today. Use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. Now, waiting patiently, we have 2 legends in the building, both Joshua B. and Owen B., legends of the podcast game. How are you two fellas doing on this Sunday morning?
We're excellent. Owen's going to go with his point first because I think it pertains directly to your conversation on Luka Doncic. And then I'm going to go with my points second. So Owen has been working on this statement. He's got it crafted. He has 3 sort of bullet points, and then you guys can react to that. I'll go with what I think. But here's Owen.
Luka Doncic is dumb. Looking at last night's game, he's just dumb.
Why do you say that?
He literally got in the way of Al Horford's swinging feet.
And?
After a dunk. And went head first in defense against Jaylen Brown.
And that's why he's not better.
And that's one reason why he's not better than Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum, arms first, stays away from the dunking person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's Owen's point. React amongst yourselves. Does this prove the argument that Jayson Tatum is definitively better than Luka Doncic, that he doesn't lead with his face and that he doesn't get in the way of Al Horford's swinging feet?
Well, I personally don't think we should victim blame Luka Doncic for getting kneed in the head by Al Horford. On the other hand, when guarding Jaylen Brown, he kind of engaged in what I like to call the Darius Garland school of defense of leading with your head. And that was a ridiculous foul call that got rescinded, and then Jaylen Brown got a tech for arguing that foul call. The tech has to be rescinded if you review the play. Like, the bad foul call is the reason that Jaylen Brown was arguing. And so I think Luka Doncic, I don't know if him getting struck in the face has any impact on whether or not he's better than Jayson Tatum, but
I'm going to stop you there, though, Packard. I think Owen makes it pretty, you got to have your head on the swivel if you look at there. These guys are flying in. It's probably not a good idea to just come in under the hoop. I think Jay asked Al about it after the game. He's like, yeah, that's momentum. Everyone is doing this in the league right now. Point Owen on this one. I think Owen's right.
Yeah, I gotta argue with you too, Jam. I think that if you're stupid enough to get in the way of somebody's feet, and you're stupid enough to put your face first when you're trying to defend Jaylen Brown, I think that probably means you're not going to continue to be good on defense, and that maybe you need, some more basketball education. I mean, you can learn that on the high top. I'm just overjoyed. I don't even know what to say other than that. I'm overjoyed Luka had a Kata-like minus 19 in this game. It makes me so over the moon. I've been saying forever that Luka Doncic is not as good as Jayson Tatum, and the stats back it up. I like what you guys were saying a lot about how you think this team could get to the conference finals, but it comes down to this idea of the last 5 years, and this is going to lead into my question for both of you. The last 5 years, what I have seen in NBA champions is 5 players on the court who can play both offensive and defense, who are not liabilities on either end of the floor, that you can't attack them in either way. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about the Giannis Bucks or whether we're talking about the Denver Nuggets or whether we're talking about last year's Celtics. The last 5 years, if you had one weak link, especially in the NBA Finals, you are in trouble, period. And as long as Luka Doncic is a starter for the Los Angeles Lakers, it's really hard for me to imagine them beating the Oklahoma City Thunder, much less the Boston Celtics, in the NBA Finals. Do you guys agree with sort of my observation over the last 5 years, or do you think that just the offensive superiority of a locked-in LeBron James, of Luka Doncic, the overarching greatness sort of supersedes everything that you've sort of seen for the last 3 years?
I mean, I think you're generally correct, Josh B. I think there's ways to construct a roster around like a defensive liability like that, but I don't think that Lakers have that current roster construction. And maybe Jackson Hayes is that guy, and I'm just being ignorant about what Jackson Hayes can provide in terms of rim protection. But like the Lakers have been a very solid defensive team ever since acquiring Luka. But it's like the type of thing is like if you have a guy who can be so easily blown by on the perimeter, there's a lot of defenses that are constructed as like, oh, we're going to funnel all of the action towards our main rim protector. And you can kind of construct a defense in that manner. And I think you can maybe get by, but I don't think the Lakers currently have a roster that is like, I guess, built perfectly to the strengths and weaknesses of the team. And so would I rather have a team of 5 guys, 6 guys, 7 guys who are all two-way players like the Celtics? Absolutely. But I don't think like Luka is necessarily doomed for his entire career to be just like never be on a championship team. I just don't know if this version of the Lakers kind of serves his skill sets the best. What do you think, Beat Rob?
Yeah, I think it's right. I think like the level of contender that the Celtics are at, and like a team like the Cavs or Thunder, they have the tools to exploit the Lakers lineup no matter what. Like there's nowhere to hide them. In a couple years, if they find that rim protecting center to put behind Luka, or just put 4 really good defenders around Luka, or with LeBron if he's still playing at that point, then I think that's a situation where you could see them overcoming it. This year with this group, the only way I honestly, like the Thunder in my mind, or the question from a standpoint like, are they going to offensively, like, they're untested in the playoffs, if you will, like are guys who are on SGA going to like shrink in the moment going up against a Steph or LeBron and Luka? And that's the only question. But clearly, you play those teams in a regular season matchup, like you like the Thunder in that matchup, 8-9 times out of 10 at this point.
So leading into my next question, I have 3. So since we're talking for the moment about the Thunder, on Wednesday we face the Thunder. And if we win the next 2 games, I was bold enough to put in chat, a chat, by the way, that you can become a part of by signing up for Still Poddable on patreon.com, become a kid, a god, a legend, and you too can be part of just the best Celtics chat in all of basketball. You can get the haters, you can get the doomsayers, you can get the pro positives, you can get everything.
All perspectives are welcome. All perspectives welcome.
Even New York Knicks fans posing as Boston Celtics fans, those fans are welcome too. But one of the perspectives I put forth in chat is that if we win, I think we have the Jazz first, but then if we win the Jazz and the Oklahoma City game, I don't see us losing at all in the month of April. Do you think that is an insane take, or do you think that as the season is winding down, as more teams are playing for draft position, as
do you mean April or March? Because there's still March, 3 weeks of
March until April, right? So for the rest of the month, and I don't see us losing a game for the rest of the month. And if I'm right, so there's a follow-up question. So if I'm right, and if we just win everything out through March, will that do you foresee us making up ground on the Cavaliers, or do you think that it's just too far out?
I think it's too late on the Cavs front because the Cavs are just, I don't even know if they're going to lose 8 more games in the season for the Cavs because that's just they're a regular season monster right now. But it's funny you say that. Like they close out the month Packard of 8 of 9 on the road after this. But they are better on the road than they are at home this year. And you look at the schedule, like this 6-game road trip they have, they will be favored by probably a lot in all these games. Like any road trip in Memphis in Game 6 of the road trip will be a tough one, I would say. But yeah, I think the reason they will lose some of these game shots is because they're going to be resting guys and they're not going to have as much to play for. Like they are going to be preserving, getting themselves ready. The 2 seed is essentially locked up. The Cavs, barring disaster, that 1 seed is out of reach. And so, yeah, like this was the test run, I feel like, Packard, the last month and a half, where kind of quiets everyone in fears about the mid-season malaise. And now it's just gearing up for April and May.
I mean, just looking at the schedule, they're going to be favored in, I would say, every game for the remainder of the season.
Yeah.
I think they're probably going to lose one just because it's March and there's some malaise. And it's like, are we really going to be locked in next Saturday on a back-to-back in Brooklyn? Or are we really going to be locked in again to play the lowly Phoenix Suns on a third game in 4 nights? I just think that kind of happens. And so I think the Thunder game is really the last big test of this season. They have beaten every other team in the league this year, except the Oklahoma City Thunder. This is the last opportunity to kind of prove, not necessarily that they need to prove anything, but it's their last opportunity. It's like, we can beat any team in this league. It was an embarrassing second half from what happened in Oklahoma City earlier in the season. And so, but after that, I'm going to predict we got a lot of random games off from a lot of different guys. And the Celtics actually tend to play better when they're a little bit short-handed, but I just think the focus they're going to need to bring to go undefeated in March or to even catch the Cavs, they'd have to go on a pretty historic run. And I just feel like they know that they don't need to do that. Like, they are very comfortable being the 2 seed and think they can play with anyone. And so I'm not anticipating them, winning out for the rest of the season, although they will be favored in every single one of those games.
It's funny that you mentioned the Celtics being shorthanded because Kristaps Porzingis has had a lot of time off. And the last podcast that B-Rob was on, he said that if Kristaps Porzingis missed the Lakers game, that he would have to do some investigative journalism. And we didn't have a Poddable post game last night. By the way, you can catch the Poddable post game every single night after most games, except Saturdays. For some reason, Saturdays are an issue. But in general, every other single night that there's a game, there's a Poddable post game with Sean and Jam afterwards. But we haven't talked about Kristaps Porzingis because we've just been assuming that he'd be fine for this Lakers game. He's the first picture that you see if you click on the box score of the Los Angeles Lakers Boston Celtics game of him in a towel, just looking onward. Where is he? What is this illness?
I'm so glad you brought this up. What is this mysterious illness that is keeping KP on the sidelines? Apparently it's not contagious, but he's been out for more than a week. B-Rob, you were in the building. Tell us what you know.
Based on my investigative journalism, Josh, of him going on Instagram reportedly yesterday and saying he was going to play, and then him not playing.
He did say on Instagram he was going to play.
And them not playing. That makes me think, and then from talking around, I don't think Celtics fans have anything to worry about here. I think this is the old rest illness for the last week. I think there was a real illness involved, but I also think that they look at KP, they look at his history, look at where the team is right now, and they're like, we're going to give you a nice little mini vacation. And I bet he really wanted to play Saturday night, and it makes sense. Why wouldn't you? Like that? That's why you play the game if you're an NBA player. But they're still coming back after a week and a half off, like under those bright lights. That's when maybe you play a little bit too hard in your return, and then you tweak something, and the track record there speaks for itself. So I expect him back, maybe in a low leverage situation. Work his way back in, coming off of the long respite. But yeah, it is. It's weird. I mean, guys, he's missed what 5 of the last 6 now, Packard. Like this is clearly isn't nothing unless it's just
unless it's nothing at all.
Unless it's nothing at all.
Yeah.
So, but again, I don't believe he was on that bench last night. He was on the other night, which makes me think again, this is something where they are just being extra cautious with him, and that's I think honestly like not a bad move for them. I think I'm honestly perfectly fine with that at this point.
Yeah, it's just I mean, rest him if you like. They didn't need him last night against the Lakers, and I think that's a perfect transition point to a guy we have not talked about enough, Al Horford.
Yes, have we not minute 30, Packer? How have we not mentioned Al Horford yet?
I don't know, but he was the target on defense for the Los Angeles Lakers, and I feel like this is going to be just repeated. Like Al Horford, if you're going to play a switch everything defense, which I think the Celtics are, Al Horford's going to be the guy to go against. And Al Horford has struggled, I would say, against smaller, quicker guards like Trae Young and Donovan Mitchell. I just have it in my head, them shooting threes over Al Horford. The Lakers' offensive players are not smaller, quicker guards. They're kind of these lumbering guys with LeBron James and Luka Doncic. And Al Horford had to guard, I think it was like 22 isolations last night.
Yeah, but it was 23 per Dean Oliver of ESPN Stats and Info.
And I think he did the best he's ever done in terms of that, only letting like 0.5 points per possession. He was just fantastic tonight on defense. And like the existence of Al Horford is the reason why you can hold Kristaps Porzingis out with a mystery illness, because you don't need Kristaps Porzingis in this game. Al Horford was just dominant defensively, creating a bunch of steals, making the right play, quick passes up the court to start transition. Al Horford just continues to do it in a way that doesn't make any sense. It's like I played pickup the other day. I'm 2 or 3 years younger than Al Horford, and I'm not comparing myself to a professional athlete, but just like the toll it takes on your body to be able to like consistently play this high level, the highest level of NBA basketball at his age is damn right impressive. And it's just, at some point it's going to stop. And so we should all be appreciating just the greatness that is Al Horford right now. And even someone put together a clip of Al Horford highlights from his first year in Boston. So was that 2017? And he was just like, the amount of dunks he had in that highlight package, like he's a remarkably just different player in terms of like physical ability, in terms of explosiveness. But that has not stopped him from being like a very, very effective defender in this league at this age. It's just wild how well he's been able to take care of his body and how he's a defensive anchor for this team. It's just a wealth of riches here for the Boston Celtics. And I don't know if they're ever going to feel like we've talked about like extending the window here, and like you have the Jays, you have Derek White, you have Peyton Pritchard. I don't know what they're going to do to have replace Al Horford, because at this point there's no one that can replace him.
No, it is wild to think. I mean, it's kind of like the gloss over factor. Like he's a free agent, and is he going to go somewhere else? Probably not. If he's going to keep playing, he's probably going to do it here, my guess is. But that old, if you want to look at like, if he wants to get fair market value right now, he's probably like a $25 million player the way he's playing this season at age 38, which is absolutely wild. But so 23 ISOs last night. I guess that was the second most in tracking history, according to this Dean Oliver stat here, which is crazy. But your point was perfect. It's like against LeBron, he's trying to bully most of the time, and Luka is trying to do step backs, and those guys, particularly Luka right now, can be put on a show, but he wasn't that guy last night for at least the first 3 quarters. And so when that's the game plan, going after Al time and time again, and Al is ready to go that game and is rested and is like at playoff level Al, then you get the phenomenal performance we saw. And my favorite part about it, Packard, was Al on offense last night. Al was like going sneaky, turning back the clock.
Post up.
In the post up Al. that's the guy that we saw plenty of when he got here too. To your going back to the video you mentioned there, not just the dunks, but like just bullying little guys, and that was there for him, and he took advantage of that. And we don't see much of that anymore either. So that's when you know it's a big game. He's doing that too.
Yeah, and it's taking advantage of like the very, very small Lakers. Like if you're going to play a small lineup, Al Horford can still do that. He can still post up. I mean, Jordan Goodwin, I guess, is a guy who was in the game, or Austin Reeves. The Celtics, as much as they picked on Luka Doncic, they are also equal opportunity offenders for picking on Austin Reeves. And that game last night just made me so confused about how have the Lakers been putting together such a good defensive stretch here with both those guys on the court. Like it's just like it feels like there's so many places to target. And so yeah, if you're going to go small, like that's the crazy thing is like they didn't have Kristaps Porzingis, but with a small lineup like that, the Celtics could have been that much better on offense. If you're going like, imagine all the Kristaps post-ups they would have gotten on guys like Austin Reeves. They would have had to Lakers like completely change kind of their defensive strategy. And so it's just wild that how the Celtics kind of continue to do this. I guess it's not that wild because they won a whole NBA finals basically without Kristaps last year, but and maybe that's just goes to show why they are kind of keeping Kristaps out now, where it's like we don't need him. He is a blessing. He's basically just an extra, like if he's there, perfect, but we don't necessarily need him to be that competitive. I feel like they'll probably need Kristaps more just because the East feels a little bit more competitive this year. But it's just amazing that they don't necessarily need him to win these kind of big basketball games against the team everyone was ready to crown as like another finals contender in the Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah,
it's a situation like I'm looking through their win streak right now, and they did have some legit wins in there. Like they beat the Knicks, they beat the Clippers a couple times. But again, like the Celtics, this is the Celtics looking like they did last year now for the last month. And you could tell from Joe on down the line in this lineup, like everyone was up for this game. They held out Porzingis, but I think that was a fine. I wonder, like, once they saw Jackson Hayes was going to play, like, even this wasn't a game for Kristaps anyway, where you needed him. But it's like the Celtics just have they can poke holes in any team. With the lamps they can present on both ends of the floor when guys are engaged. And now you're seeing that round into form. And I think this was a gut check to degree, if you will, of like they know, and they got their ass kicked by this team a month and a half ago. And they didn't make a big deal about it at the time because it was a back-to-back on a long road trip, and they just didn't have it that night. But it was kind of surprising at the time. Like, wow, they didn't even like put up a fight against the team. That clearly that message resonated in this matchup, and like you said, they'll get one more check against the Thunder here on Wednesday night. But you should feel as good about this team as you have at all this season if you're a Celtics fan right now. What do you think of Jrue in his return from this with his finger situation?
He did some Jrue-like stuff. He took I think there's one ridiculous three that he got in. Like it was an offensive rebound, and he just dribbled it out to the 3-point line and immediately took a three. And I was like, that's the Jrue Holiday I know and love. Just solid defensively, but it was like, I think this was like a prototypical Jrue performance for this season, where he does his job defensively. I'm actually kind of surprised to see him at 34 minutes. I felt like there were some lineups out there where it was more Peyton Pritchard playing with the starters instead of Jrue, but maybe that's just what I remembered. But he does exactly what you need him to do. He smokes a terrible layup early on in the game, but then makes up for it with some nice, just made some buckets coming out of the dunker spot. Unclear how the mallet finger affected him, but I think he is just he's a solid plus performer tonight, but nothing wowed you from Jrue Holiday.
Yeah, and you hope the early terrible turnover and miss. You're like, all right, maybe he's getting used to playing with that mini splint or whatever on his pinky there. But then he kind of went back into what he was all year long, and that's all you need right now. And I imagine they're going to be super careful of him. I like it all these minutes from last night. We keep talking about how it's a good sign. They're amped it up for this game and did this. I don't want to see these minutes again if I'm a Celtics fan right now for the rest of the year, like for any of these guys, particularly Tatum and Brown and Al. at 37 minutes. Like that's.
I'll buy it for the Thunder game. If you want to circle the Thunder game, and
you got to sit on Monday night though. If you want this for the Thunder game, you got to sit them all on against the Jazz on Monday, or good, thoroughly Al, because he's been playing. I was looking at his game log right now. Al's last 5 games, 30 minutes, 38 minutes, 35, 31, 37. Like, and he did have a rest game in there too. But I'm like, that's good. Like we saw we needed to do from Al. And that's great. He got to do it from this, but let's ramp that back down. But it is, it's encouraging to see him out there and with going back to Jrue. And I don't know, like this is the injury. I know like Josh B broke it down for you guys last week, but it's clearly something where it's like, all right, I'm just going to be careful of it, keep this brace on it for a while. And then hopefully it feels 100% by the time the play up, at least by the time like the second or third round comes along.
Yeah, and like I don't think you don't need a lot from Jrue Holiday. You need the defensive effort. So I agree. Like for the rest of the season, and that's another reason why I think the Celtics are not going to go undefeated for their and catch the cast. It's just like I think they're going to be very selective, especially on back-to-backs and about who's playing. Hopefully, keeping their minutes down. It's definitely going to be like. They're pretty much locked into the 2 seed. Then the Knicks Jalen Brunson got hurt with a high ankle sprain, so I don't think there's like any real risk of the Celtics being caught from behind from there in the standings. So it's just about after you get this Thunder game out of the way, hopefully that's a win. It's all about setting yourself up for being as healthy as possible for when mid-April comes. B-Rob, I don't know. This is a very important question. Were you paying attention to the halftime show last night?
I was not. I was
doing work.
I was doing work and getting some snacks.
Oh wow! What
do you have for me?
Did you not? So you haven't seen it at all?
I feel I probably caught it in the peripheral vision, but I was not paying attention to it.
It was a man balancing on his forehead a giant pole, probably goes up 15 feet, and another platform, and then a man was doing a handstand on top of that platform. It was halftime innovation. Now, this is why I'm shocked you didn't look up and be like, "This is the craziest thing."
Well, isn't that like was the like who's the guy who usually does it? Sledek, right? I guess I probably saw it. I think I saw it, and I was like, I assumed it was Sledek when I saw the big pole.
See, Sledek is different. Sledek does that on top of 5 or 6 chairs that are firmly planted on the ground.
Okay.
Red Panda will balance on her unicycle. This kind of combines both in the 2-man game where you're balancing literally on a man's forehead. Taylor Snow tweeted out the clip. It's absolutely insane, and it's the type of innovation that I'll send it to you, B-Rob. It's the type of innovation that I've been wanting in the halftime game for years now. It's a new act that I haven't seen, and it's just I'll retweet it now for those who haven't seen it. It's just absolutely mind-boggling stuff. It's perfect.
I mean, that's insanity. How do you discover that type of a skill if you were the guy with the forehead, like balancing?
I mean, I think you start at a young age balancing like a broom on your forehead. And then at some point you're like, hey, friend, you get up there and you do a handstand. At some point there's a natural progression to where you're inviting your very fit gymnast friend to balance on top of your forehead like that. It was just it was wild stuff, B-Rob, and I'm, you know what? It's a shame that you missed it. Sorry, shame on you for doing your job and getting refueling for the second half. But here's the real question: were you fast enough to get the good halftime snacks in the media section?
I did get down there for a candy. Yeah,
all right,
I got one of the last recess, so that was a big one.
For those who don't know, at the halftime and the TD Garden, they have a media dining section. They wheel out there's it's 8 levels of snacks, and there's some top tier candies in there. You got peanut M&Ms, you got some Reese's, you got Twix, you got Kit Kats, but those go quick. It's a race every single game to see if you can get those good snacks. And then most those go very quickly. And so if you're a little bit slow at halftime, you're left with an off-brand Sun Chip or a Cheeto
original
variety.
Lay's.
Yeah, or just an original Lay's. So if you do want some mid-game nourishment, being quick in that halftime. If you're on level 9, there's no chance you're getting a good.
You better leave it in the second quarter. You better leave it in the second quarter.
You got to miss. I understand where your priorities were. You had no idea this performance was coming. They should have done some pre-announcements about this. But
what a way to do it! Like come out of the gate though. If that was their Celtics Lakers halftime, like that's where you want to get.
That's where you make your debut.
Buzz.
It's just too bad it was on ABC, so like the League Pass watching community couldn't catch their performance as well.
Right.
That was light years better than anything ESPN has produced in terms of a halftime show, at least in the last 5 years. And so
ESPN halftime is 13 minutes of commercials.
Exactly. At least show me a picture-in-picture where these two guys balance each other. B-Rob, is there anything else from this game or the last week of Celtics basketball we should talk about before we get out of here?
We have to talk about the Jordan Goodwin cut the ball off, like the kick out pass that he picked off and then threw away.
The pass to no one?
The pass to no one.
He vacated that space to steal a pass from his teammate and then throw it back to the space he just vacated and then missed a layup after the wide open layup. It was a great end to the half from the Celtics. And those things matter. I think they went from it was a very close game and then built that lead back up to 6. Ultimately, it didn't end up mattering because then they went on a, 19-2 run in the third quarter. But just a ridiculous end of the half there from Jordan Goodwin. For the majority of this game, or not for the start of this game, I saw Goodwin out there, and I thought it was former NBA player or maybe current NBA player Archie Goodwin. I didn't realize there was another Goodwin out there, and so I was shocked to hear Jordan Goodwin. I've never heard of this individual.
Yeah, I mean that. I believe he's on a 2-way deal, as is Trey Davidson. Like if you want to be like, why are the Lakers not going to win the title? It's like, well, Jordan Goodwin actually kind of matters for their team. And I know they didn't have Rui's been good for them. I do think that was actually a meaningful episode. He's been good defensively. Jackson Hayes is a middle level player and has been for his entire career essentially. So, yeah, I don't know. It was, I just after watching this game and I don't know, we didn't talk about LeBron's injury at all. The end, that's could be a fairly big deal. But I want Lakers Warriors in the playoffs. I want the for as predictable as the East should be in the first couple of rounds, the West could be an absolute free for all. With some of the with the Nuggets looking at the air, the Thunder looking at the air, and now the Warriors and the Lakers kind of turning into form here.
Yeah, and the LeBron injury could really impact the standings because. Yep. Right now, the Lakers are in third, but only 2.5 games up on the Grizzlies, 2 games up on the Rockets. If LeBron's out for 2 weeks, I don't know if that roster can sustain it's very much they're winning on the backs of LeBron James and Luka Doncic. And so they might drop. I think the West is always going to be more interesting just because they have much deeper teams and level of talent. And so, but yes, Lakers Warriors would be an amazing first round matchup. I think just all the second round matchups, no matter what happens in the NBA playoffs, are going to be fantastic. And I'm very much looking forward to the playoffs starting. We can just, after the Thunder game, we can just fast forward a month if we, I have no qualms with that.
Except here on Still Poddable.
Except here on Still Poddable, where we won't do that because we're going to be here for you every single day, Monday through Friday. And you know what? A random game in Phoenix on a Wednesday night, we're going to have a post-game Poddable. We're going to have a post-game Poddable after the Jazz game where hopefully none of the Celtic stars play. Hopefully that's a
Baylor Shireman.
Baylor Shireman special. A J.D. Davidson G League MVP question mark. Absolutely. Hopefully he'll get some minutes there. But Still Poddable will be there for you every single day, Monday through Friday. If you guys are listening on the free episode or on YouTube, check out patreon.com/stillpoddable. It's for more content from me, from B-Rob, from J King, from The Athletic. We very much appreciate everyone who has tuned in, and we'll be back, for the rest of this week talking Boston Celtics basketball at patreon.com/stillpoddable. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and I don't know how to end this show.
Still Poddable, Still Poddable, the Boston Celtics Still Poddable, Still Poddable.
Drinking and all that wild stuff.